The stunning Table Mountain in Cape Town was illuminated by the morning sun, casting a magical view over the busy city. Situated on the rugged coast of South Africa, Cape Town was a city that juxtaposed towering skyscrapers with the wild beauty of nature. Michaela Taylor, a young surfer whose essence reflected the wild ocean, discovered a feeling of belonging in the vibrant streets and lively shores of her urban environment. She saw Cape Town as more than simply a city. It represented a certain way of life, a location where she could fully embrace the ocean's rhythm. While on her way to her usual spot for surfing, Michaela was amazed by the beautiful scenery around her. She gazed at the expanse of the Atlantic Ocean's blue waters ahead of her, reflecting the morning sun while seagulls echoed in the distant salty air. Arriving at the secluded cove where she enjoyed surfing, Michaela experienced a surge of excitement. The waves in this location were known for their strong power and determined nature, and Michaela enjoyed the challenge they presented. With her trusty surfboard by her side, Michaela headed out into the pristine waters, experiencing the refreshing touch of the sea surrounding her. With eager eyes, she scanned the horizon in search of the ideal wave to ride, her heart filled with anticipation and pounding. However, as Michaela surfed on top of a huge wave towards the beach, her feeling of complete happiness was ruined by a sudden motion below her. A chilling fear ran down Michaela's back as a sinister shadow lurked below the water's surface. Before she could react, the bull shark swiftly surged upwards, its large mouth snapping just inches from her dangling feet. Michaela felt her heart racing with frantic energy as she paddled away quickly, sensing the surge of adrenaline in her bloodstream. Bull sharks were well known for their aggressive behavior, often seen swimming in the waters of Cape Town, hunting for food. They are top predators, able to cause significant harm with just one bite due to their strong jaws and sharp teeth. While attempting to evade the relentless predator, Michaela felt a sudden pain in her leg when the shark's teeth broke through her skin. She screamed in pain and flailed wildly, trying to escape its grasp. The shark's teeth ripped her wetsuit apart easily, causing deep wounds on her leg that bled into the water in crimson trails. Michaela struggled to remain alert as her vision became hazy with pain, her thoughts overwhelmed by the suddenness of the assault. Michaela gathered up all her energy to grab her surfboard, struggling with the built-in electronic shark repellent device as she did so. She quickly activated a switch, sending a strong electric pulse that shocked the shark's sensitive receptors, making it let go of her leg. Struggling to breathe, Michaela kicked fiercely towards the top, her wounded leg leaving a trail of blood in the water. However, the shark was not willing to surrender without a fight. Driven by an innate instinct, it circled to launch another assault, never losing sight of its injured victim. Michaela resisted with all her remaining energy, using her surfboard as a makeshift shield against the unending attack. Repeatedly, the shark attacked her, its mouth closing just inches away from her. As time went by, Michaela's injuries worsened, causing a searing pain to spread through her body. The salt water entering her wounds caused increasing pain. The sharp teeth of the shark caused deep puncture injuries in her leg, cutting through muscle and sinew. Blood mixed with ocean water, forming a red cloud that surrounded the surfer's battered form. Michaela's cries resonated through the water, a chilling mixture of agony and terror that traveled through the vast emptiness of the ocean. The woman sensed the shark's warm breath on her body, its innate craving pushing it nearer to its injured target. However, Michaela persisted in not giving in to the darkness that loomed over her, determined not to be consumed by it. Focused on staying alive, she used all her remaining strength to keep the shark away, feeling her muscles burn with fatigue. Michaela's strength was gradually waning. Placing all her faith in the shark repellent, she activated the device again, aiming to scare off the aggressive shark. Just as the shark was about to strike once more, it abruptly changed course and swam away. Perplexed, Michaela took advantage of the situation by getting on her board and beginning to paddle towards the shore. With a new resolve, she delved into her innermost being, tapping into the final bit of energy she possessed. Using all her strength, Michaela paddled vigorously, feeling the burning sensation in her arms as she pushed herself towards safety. She felt relief and triumph as the shore neared steadily with every passing moment. Finally, after a long time, Michaela felt the comforting feeling of sand under her feet as she made her way onto the safety of the beach. Sinking onto the gentle sand, she let out a sigh of relief, her body shaking from a mix of fatigue and excitement. While lying down and gazing at the expansive sky overhead, Michaela couldn't shake a deep feeling of thanks. She confronted her biggest fear and came out on top, demonstrating to both herself and others that her strength surpassed even her expectations. Immediately, a group of beachgoers noticed Michaela lying bloodied on the sand. With a mixture of panic and urgency, the group called for help. In just a matter of minutes, Michaela was being loaded into an ambulance that would take her to the hospital. After a few weeks, Michaela was released from the hospital. Her leg bore the scars of the gruesome encounter with the shark. But despite the injuries, she was thankful for the second chance at life. In the frigid waters off the coast of Alaska, a competitive open-water swimmer named Leah Thompson was about to embark on a challenge that could etch her name into the annals of history. Leah had trained her whole life for moments like this, pushing her body and mind to the limits to become the record holder for the longest unassisted swim in these icy waters. It was the summer of 2011, and the chill in the air was as sharp as the anticipation that ran through Leah's veins. Leah's journey began at dawn with the orange hues of the morning sun casting a golden path across the dark, undulating surface of the ocean. The scene was picturesque, the kind of moment that postcards are made of, except for the cold, which seemed to seep into every bone in the body. The locals, familiar with the area's rugged beauty and treacherous waters, had shared tales of mariners and adventurers who dared to confront the Alaskan wilderness. Yet Leah felt a connection to these waters, a call to prove herself against the vast, unyielding sea. As she slid into the water, her body recoiled momentarily at the shock of the cold before she acclimated and began her rhythmic strokes, each propelling her further into the heart of the ocean. Leah's support team followed at a safe distance, monitoring her progress and ready to intervene at the first sign of trouble. But Leah was in her element, her focus unbreakable, her determination as fierce as the currents she navigated. Hours passed, with Leah covering mile after mile, her thoughts oscillating between the mechanical repetition of her strokes and the serene emptiness that enveloped her. The sun climbed higher, casting its warm glow over the sea, starkly contrasting the cold darkness lurking beneath the waves. It was in these depths that the shadow first appeared. A great white shark, intrigued by the lone swimmer above, began to shadow Leah's progress. The shark, a magnificent sea predator, was drawn to Leah out of hunger and curiosity. Its massive form glided effortlessly through the water, a silent observer of the human's relentless pursuit. Unaware of her observer, Leah continued her swim, her body beginning to feel the strain of her efforts. The cold numbed her limbs, and fatigue whispered for her to give in, but her spirit remained unbroken. She swam on, driven by a force more potent than the physical exhaustion that clawed at her with each stroke. As the day wore on, Leah's support team grew increasingly anxious. The waters off Alaska were known for their unpredictable dangers, and the presence of a great white shark heightened their concern. They debated intervening, pulling Leah from her record-breaking attempt to ensure her safety. Yet, whenever they considered acting, Leah's determination and progress convinced them to hold off and trust in her strength and preparation. The shark continued its silent vigil, its interest in Leah undiminished. It was a surreal dance between predator and prey, where the circumstances blurred the usual roles. For all her human vulnerabilities, Leah was not a target but an anomaly in the shark's domain, a puzzle that piqued its interest. The night began to fall and the temperature dropped further with it. Leah's body was pushed to its limits, her movements becoming slower, more laborious. The cold seeped into her bones, a constant reminder of the harshness of her environment. Yet her resolve did not waver. She pressed on, each stroke a testament to her will, each breath a defiance of the natural order that sought to claim her. Leah's challenge reached its zenith in the darkest hours, with the moon casting a silver light over the water. The great white, still following, had become a symbol of the natural world's raw power and majesty, a force that Leah respected but refused to fear. Leah's initial reaction upon realizing a predator of such magnitude was following her was pure adrenaline. However, her extensive training and mental preparation for the swim had also equipped her with the knowledge of how to handle potential shark encounters. Understanding that panic and rapid movements could trigger the shark's predatory instincts, Leah tried to remain calm and maintain steady, deliberate strokes. The shark made several close passes, scrutinizing Leah with an almost calculated curiosity each time. Leah remained still when necessary in these moments, allowing the shark to observe her without perceiving her as prey or a threat. This tactic was based on the understanding that sharks, often misunderstood as mindless predators, can discern curiosity from aggression. Surviving this ordeal required Leah to tap into bottomless reserves of mental strength. She continuously reassured herself, focusing on her breathing and maintaining a presence of mind that kept panic at bay. Leah's ability to stay composed under such intense pressure was instrumental in preventing the situation from escalating into a physical attack. The turning point came when, after what felt like an eternity, the shark slowly began to lose interest. Perhaps realizing that Leah was not its typical prey or simply satisfied with its curiosity, the shark gradually distanced itself, eventually disappearing into the ocean's depths. Leah, though shaken, seized the moment to reassess her situation and gather her strength. Recognizing the shark's departure as her opportunity to continue, she resumed her swim with renewed vigor and a profound gratitude for surviving the encounter. Her focus shifted back to her initial goal, but now with the added perspective of coming face to face with one of nature's most formidable predators and emerging unscathed. Completing the swim marked a significant achievement in Leah's career and embodied a remarkable story of human perseverance. Leah's encounter with the great white shark became a testament to her courage, a vivid illustration of the unpredictable challenges adventurers face in the natural world, and a reminder of the respect due to the creatures that inhabit it. Her survival strategy, rooted in calmness, understanding, and respect for the shark, highlighted a crucial lesson in coexisting with the powerful forces of nature. She understood then that her journey was more than a record. It was a communion with the sea, a challenge to herself, and a story that would be told in hushed tones of a woman who dared to confront the shadows beneath the waves. The dawn of the next day found Leah exhausted but triumphant. She had completed her swim, setting a new record and proving to herself and the world that the human spirit could endure and overcome. Leah's ordeal became a tale of courage and resilience, a reminder that the most formidable challenges often lie within ourselves. She had faced the vastness of the ocean and the shadows beneath the waves, not with conquest in mind, but with respect and a desire to understand. Like the water she had navigated, her story was deep and filled with the unknown, a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit. The air crackled with excitement as Rachel Bennett stepped onto the dive boat. It was June 25, 2010, and the sparkling waters of Emerald Isle, a tropical paradise off the coast of eastern Australia, beckoned with the promise of adventure. Shark cage diving had topped Rachel's bucket list for years. A thrill seeker, she craved the adrenaline rush of facing her fears in a way most tourists never would. The other passengers were a mix of wide-eyed first-timers and seasoned veterans. Despite her anticipation, Rachel couldn't shake a lingering sense of unease. Sharks were creatures of awe, but also predators with undeniable power. The boat reached the dive site, known for its high population of tiger sharks. Rachel's pulse quickened as the crew assembled the heavy steel cage and prepared the chum to lure in the sharks. She watched the water, already teeming with smaller fish. She knew the sharks would be following soon. With a mix of trepidation and exhilaration, it was Rachel's turn to enter the cage. Two other tourists, a young couple named Tim and Maya, joined her. They shared nervous grins, the camaraderie of facing the unknown together offering some comfort. As they were lowered into the depths, Rachel was struck by the water's clarity. Sunlight dappled the sandy ocean floor, and schools of fish darted around the cage. The first few sharks appeared as if from nowhere, sleek shadows passing with unnerving speed. Rachel fought the urge to retreat, reminding herself that the cage was her protection. The crew began dispersing the chum, and the effect was immediate. More sharks materialized, their numbers growing. Soon, at least a dozen tiger sharks circled, drawn by the scent of fish and blood. Rachel gripped the bars, her heart pounding as massive bodies brushed against the steel. She couldn't help but marvel at their size, their eyes like black marbles. Then the weather changed. The sky darkened and the wind whipped up, rocking the boat violently. The dive master's voice crackled over the speakers. The dive was cut short. They had to bring everyone up immediately. Rachel felt a jolt of fear, They were at the mercy of the elements, and the sharks, growing more agitated by the minute, sensed the shift too. The cage wasn't meant for heavy wave action. She watched in dismay as the winch cable went slack. The engine malfunctioned. They were trapped. Panic surged through Rachel. They bobbed like a cork in the turbulent water, and the sharks were whipping themselves into a frenzy. The cage creaked and groaned as a shark rammed it head-on, and the rusty bolts holding the structure together looked frighteningly fragile. The other tourists had turned from excited to terrified. Tim yelled for help, but his voice was lost in the howling wind. Maya huddled in the corner, tears streaming down her face. Rachel knew she had to be the strong one to keep them focused on survival. Her voice shook slightly, but she forced an air of confidence that she wasn't entirely sure she felt. The dive master barked orders from the storm-tossed boat. The crew was scrambling for a solution, but Rachel knew every minute trapped in the cage was an invitation to disaster. The tiger sharks, growing increasingly bold, slammed into the metal bars with frightening force. Suddenly, there was a sickening screech. One of the bolts had snapped loose. A gap opened on one side of the cage, just wide enough for a shark to squeeze through. Rachel watched in horror as a massive tiger shark charged, aiming for the opening. She screamed, kicking out desperately at the massive creature. Her foot made glancing contact, enough to divert it momentarily. Maya and Tim joined in, shouting and flailing, doing anything to repel the monster. Yet the shark was undeterred. It twisted its body and surged through the gap, entering the cage. Chaos erupted. Tim was shoved against the bars, his screams of pain cut short as the shark clamped down on his leg. The water churned crimson, the scent of blood driving the other sharks into a frenzy. Rachel and Maya scrambled in the opposite direction, but the tiger shark in the cage thrashed blindly, destroying their safety. The structure was collapsing. The smell of blood and the sounds of panic drew the other sharks closer. Rachel knew they were out of options. She yelled at Maya that they had to jump. It was a long, dangerous drop to the water, swirling chaos filled with waiting predators. Yet it was still better than waiting for a gruesome death inside the collapsing cage. Maya, eyes wide with terror, hesitated for only a second before she lunged over the side, disappearing into the churning sea below. Rachel took a deep breath and followed, praying that the sharks focused more on the carnage inside the cage. She hit the water hard, and the shock of cold drove the breath from her lungs. Rachel kicked frantically, trying to get her bearings. When she broke the surface, gasping, she saw Maya bobbing a short distance away, miraculously uninjured. Then she saw the shark. It had finished with Tim and burst through the remains of the cage. Beelining towards them, a dark torpedo homing in was unlike anything Rachel had ever imagined. At that moment she knew true terror. But somewhere beneath the panic, a flicker of determination ignited. She was not going to become shark food. With every ounce of strength, she and Maya began swimming towards the dive boat, now listing dangerously close. The shark followed, but the waves tossed Rachel over the swells, momentarily hiding her from view. She screamed for the crew to help, her voice a desperate cry amidst the roaring storm. Then, as suddenly as it had appeared, it was gone. Perhaps distracted by an easier target, the shark vanished into the murky depths. A calloused arm hauled Rachel over the railing, and she crumpled into a shivering heap beside Maya on the boat's deck. Their ordeal wasn't over. The storm still raged, but they'd survived the immediate horror. As the ship limped back to shore, Rachel's joy was tempered by a haunting truth. The ocean's beauty hit a brutal heart, and she'd witnessed it first. In the summer of 2003, the serene coastline of California was the center stage for a series of unnerving events. The quaint town of Del Mar, nestled along this picturesque stretch of the Pacific, was known more for its sandy beaches and surf culture than for the dark undercurrents that would soon envelop it. The tranquility of Del Mar was shattered when Mia Jiang, a tenacious journalist for the local paper, the Coastal Watch, received reports of an unprecedented number of shark attacks in the area. Known for her investigative prowess, Mia was immediately drawn to the story, sensing that the sudden spike in aggression from the marine inhabitants was more than just a quirk of nature. As Mia delved deeper into the investigation, she uncovered a disturbing connection between the shark attacks and illegal chemical dumping off the coast. It appeared that a conglomerate, under the guise of marine research, had been discharging toxic waste into the ocean, disrupting the ecosystem's delicate balance and inciting the local shark population into a frenzy. Mia's quest for the truth was not without its perils. The more she probed, the clearer it became that some individuals would go to great lengths to ensure her silence. Threats began to materialize from the affected marine life and shadowy figures lurking in the margins of her investigation. Despite the danger, Mia remained undeterred. Her investigation took her from the dimly lit corridors of corporate offices to the very heart of the stormy sea. Alongside her trusted friend and marine biologist, Dr. Lucas Harper, Mia sought to gather undeniable proof of the conglomerate's misdeeds. The climax of their endeavor came on a fateful day aboard Dr. Harper's research vessel. As they collected samples near the dumping site, they were besieged by a group of sharks, their behavior more erratic than ever, a vivid testament to the chemicals' effect on their nervous systems. Amid their urgent retreat toward the safety of their research vessel, Mia Jiang felt a sudden sharp tug on her leg. Her heart skipped a beat as she realized that one of the sharks had managed to close the distance between them in its chemically induced confusion and aggression. The murky waters around her churned violently as the shark's serrated teeth grazed her wetsuit, narrowly missing her skin but catching on the fabric. Panic threatened to overtake her, the instinctual fear of being pulled under wrestling with her determination to survive. But Mia was not alone. Always attentive, Lucas Harper had kept a vigilant eye on Mia as they escaped. Seeing the shark lunge at Mia, he acted with swift decisiveness that belied his calm exterior. Lucas swam directly toward Mia without hesitation, his movements calculated and precise. He understood the risk of intervening directly with a shark in attack mode. Still, he also knew their erratic behavior might offer a slim chance of distraction. Reaching Mia in just a few powerful strokes, Lucas positioned himself between her and the shark, wielding his dive knife not as a weapon but as a defense. Lucas aimed for the most non-lethal deterrent based on his deep understanding of shark behavior. He targeted the shark's most sensitive areas, tapping it sharply on the snout with the flat of his dive knife. Sharks, even those affected by toxins, often retreat after an unexpected resistance, as it confuses and startles them. His action, combined with the residual noise and light from the flare he had fired moments earlier, created enough distraction for the shark to lose interest in Mia momentarily. Seizing the moment, Lucas grabbed Mia by the arm, ensuring she was all right before signaling her to swim as fast as they could to the boat. Mia, shaken but unharmed thanks to the protective material of her wetsuit, followed Lucas's lead. The adrenaline surging through her veins lent her strength she didn't know she had, propelling her through the water. As they hauled themselves onto the deck's safety, Mia couldn't help but feel gratitude towards Lucas. His quick thinking and bravery had undoubtedly saved her from a far worse fate. Sitting on the deck, catching their breaths after the ordeal, the gravity of the situation began to sink in. Mia looked over at Lucas, a mix of thankfulness and resolve in her eyes. This close encounter with death only solidified her determination to expose the environmental crimes that had led to this dangerous imbalance in the ecosystem. But the actual battle lay ahead. Armed with irrefutable evidence, Mia took her findings to the public, sparking outrage and prompting immediate action. The conglomerate was exposed and faced severe legal repercussions for its actions. The dumping ceased, and efforts were initiated to rehabilitate the affected marine life. In the wake of the scandal, Mia Jiang emerged not only as a hero in the eyes of the Del Mar community, but also as a beacon of environmental advocacy. Her courage to stand against formidable adversaries highlighted the importance of safeguarding our planet's delicate ecosystems. Years later, the events of that tumultuous summer served as a stark reminder of the consequences of human recklessness. Mia's story, chronicled in her own words in a best-selling book, inspired a new generation of environmentalists and journalists alike. As for Del Mar, the town slowly regained its peaceful rhythm, the azure waves once again teeming with life, a testament to nature's resilience. Crystal-clear waters of crystal caverns off the coast of Bermuda beckoned with an irresistible promise. It was August 28, 2007, a day Emma Brooks had waited months for. Sunlight shimmered through the water, casting dancing patterns on the cavern floor far below. Emma was no ordinary diver. Free diving was her passion, pushing the limits of the human body on a single breath of air. The constraints of scuba gear felt suffocating to her. With just a mask, fins, and an iron will, she could descend into the ocean depths with a fluidity and grace unmatched by tank-bound divers. Today was a unique challenge. Crystal Caverns was a labyrinth of underwater tunnels and chambers, rumored to be teeming with marine life. Emma had meticulously planned her dive, mapping out routes, calculating air consumption, and prepping emergency backups. The thrill of navigating these uncharted depths fueled her as much as the lack of oxygen would threaten her. Her mentor, a grizzled old freediver named Elias, watched with a practiced eye. He knew Emma's strength and determination and harbored a healthy dose of concern. The caverns were unpredictable. A wrong turn, a sudden current could mean disaster far from the surface. Emma signaled she was ready. Taking a final deep breath, she slipped beneath the surface. The water enveloped her, cool and refreshing. With powerful strokes of her fins, she descended into the semi-darkness, her eyes quickly adjusting. Crystal Caverns lived up to its name. Colorful fish darted through the coral structures, and shafts of light pierced the tunnels like ethereal spotlights. Emma felt the familiar joy of being in her element. The weightlessness, the heightened senses, the sense of connection with an alien world. She followed her planned route, her heart pounding with exertion and exhilaration. The deeper she went, the dimmer the natural light grew. She switched on her dive torch, the beam illuminating vibrant sponges and sea anemones clinging to the cavern walls. Yet she couldn't shake an instinctive disquiet. The silence here was heavier, more oppressive. She reached a larger chamber, a yawning chasm shrouded in gloom. Something shifted in the shadows, a flicker of movement just beyond her torchlight. A ripple of unease ran down her spine. Her instincts screamed danger. Hammerhead sharks, known for their aggression, were occasionally sighted in Bermudan waters. This could be their domain. Carefully, Emma scanned the chamber, and then she saw it. A massive hammerhead, easily 12 feet long, emerged from the darkness. It circled her, its strange head swiveling like a periscope as it took her measure. Fear, raw and primal, surged through Emma. She knew the potential aggression of hammerheads and their territorial nature. Her presence was a direct challenge in the shark's domain. She had to de-escalate the situation to show she wasn't a competitor or food source. Slowly, deliberately, she turned back towards the tunnel she had entered from. It was a tight squeeze. With her tank-free body, it was her only option. The shark followed, its massive form gliding effortlessly through the spacious chamber. Panic threatened to overwhelm her, but Emma forced down the terror. Panicking would only waste precious air and cloud her judgment. She reached the tunnel, praying it was the right one. The shark circled behind her, waiting. Its presence was heavy, an ever-present threat ready to strike. She didn't hesitate. Kicking hard, Emma entered the tunnel. The confined space was a double-edged sword. It restricted the shark's freedom of movement and trapped her inside. She swam frantically, the torch beam bouncing erratically as her heart pounded against her ribs. Then it happened. The shark darted forward, perhaps deciding a confined space made her an easier target. Emma turned, kicking out desperately to try and ward it off. She felt a brush against her leg, teeth grazing her skin. Pain exploded, not the sharp bite of a predator, but the scrape of rough scales. Still, it fueled her terror. She knew time was running out, both her remaining air and the shark's lessening patience. The tunnel twisted and turned, a seemingly endless maze. Emma's lungs burned and spots danced before her eyes. The shark was unrelenting, a relentless presence behind her. It was only a matter of time until it decided to strike in earnest. Ahead, Emma saw a glimmer of light. Not the filtered sunlight from above, but a brighter, whiter light. An exit. A surge of hope propelled her tired body. She kicked harder, willing herself forward. And then she exploded out of the tunnel and into air. She was in a small enclosed cavern, an air pocket hidden within the vast cave system. Gasping and choking, Emma dragged herself onto a rocky ledge and ripped off her mask. Frantically, she checked her leg. There was a ragged cut, bleeding but thankfully shallow. She had escaped the shark, but her ordeal wasn't over. She needed to learn how to navigate the rest of the cavern system, and her air supply was dangerously low. Panic threatened to rise once more, but Emma fought it back. She'd survived this far by quick thinking, not blind terror. She had to find a way out. Studying the cavern, she noticed another tunnel, a narrow opening partially submerged. Was it a path back to the surface or another dead end? It was a gamble, but her only chance. Taking a fortifying breath, Emma slipped back into the cool water. After what felt like an eternity, her head broke the surface again. This time it was the bright, open ocean. Blinded by the light, she gulped down lungfuls of air. Never had it tasted so sweet. The shark was nowhere in sight. It took Emma long to find her way back to the boat, navigating by instinct and desperate hope. When Elias and the rescue crew spotted her, their shouts of joy felt like they came from a different world. Collapsing onto the deck, Emma knew she'd never forget the monstrous shape lurking in the gloom, the feel of rough scales against her skin, and the chilling realization that the ocean is both the giver and taker of life. In the vast expanse of the ocean, far from the nearest shore, a solitary research platform bobbed on the surface like a lonely island in a sea of endless blue. The year was 2014, and Dr. Kara Simmons, a dedicated marine biologist, had made this remote outpost her temporary home. Her mission was to study the nocturnal behaviors of sharks, creatures that have fascinated her since childhood. Kara believed that understanding these apex predators could lead to breakthroughs in marine conservation and unlock secrets of their misunderstood nature. The platform, officially known as Oceanic Research Station Delta, was situated in the Pacific Ocean, a few hundred miles off the coast of Hawaii. In these deep waters, Kara hoped to observe the rarely seen hunting patterns of sharks under cover of darkness. The station, equipped with state-of-the-art technology and underwater lighting systems, was designed to attract marine life, making it an ideal place for her research. However, as often with the sea, calm waters can quickly turn treacherous. A sudden, unforeseen, violent storm swept across the ocean, isolating Kara from the rest of the world. Communications were severed, leaving her stranded on this metal speck amidst the swirling storm. As the storm raged on, the day gave way to night, and the research platform became an unwitting beacon in the dark, drawing the attention of the ocean's predators. Shadows began to circle beneath the waves, their forms large and menacing. Curious and encouraged by the platform's lights, the sharks ventured closer than ever. Though initially fascinated by the sudden opportunity to observe the sharks up close, Kara soon realized the gravity of her situation. The platform, designed for research and not survival in extreme conditions, showed signs of wear from the relentless storm. Supplies were limited, and the prospect of rescue seemed distant as the storm blocked all attempts at communication. Faced with the dual threat of nature's fury above and the predators below, Kara had to muster all her knowledge and resourcefulness. She knew that panic would serve no purpose. Instead, she focused on securing the station, reinforcing its structural integrity where she could, and conserving her limited resources. The isolation and the constant looming presence of the sharks tested Kara's mental fortitude. She documented her observations and thoughts in a journal, a practice that became her only solace in the enveloping darkness. The sharks, seemingly aware of her presence, became a nightly spectacle. They were not the mindless killers of sensationalized stories, but complex creatures, each with its patterns and behaviors. Kara established a routine as days turned into nights and back into days, using her knowledge of sharks to avoid attracting undue attention. She minimized light usage, kept movement on the platform to a minimum during peak shark activity hours, and used her understanding of their behavior to predict their movements. Rescue seemed an ever-distant dream as the storm raged with no sign of abating. But Kara's resolve did not waver. She knew that her survival depended not only on her physical well-being but also on her mental resilience. In all its vastness and mystery, the ocean had always been her passion, and now it was her adversary. As the days passed on, the isolated sea sentinel, Dr. Kara Simmons, was caught in a relentless cycle of observation, survival, and introspection. Each night, the platform became a stage for the silent ballet of sharks below, their sleek forms cutting through the water, illuminated by the artificial glow. Kara's initial fear gave way to profound wonder and respect for these creatures. They were not the monsters of nightmares, but rather essential components of the ocean's complex ecosystem. Her detailed notes and observations became more than just scientific data. They were a lifeline, a way to maintain her sanity in the face of overwhelming isolation. Kara noted the patterns in the sharks' behaviors, their curious investigations of the platform, and their interactions with each other. She discovered a world far removed from human understanding, a glimpse into the natural order that thrives in the absence of humanity. However, the beauty and intrigue of her underwater observations did nothing to alleviate the psychological toll of her situation. Loneliness crept in during the quieter moments, a constant reminder of her vulnerability and isolation. Kara found herself talking aloud, narrating her actions and findings as if to an unseen audience, a tactic to combat the silence that enveloped her. She missed the simple comforts of human interaction, the sound of another voice, the warmth of human presence. Her dreams were filled with faces of friends and family, only to wake to the stark reality of her solitude. Kara's resilience was tested further by the challenges of living in a confined space with limited supplies, and the constant need to maintain the platform's systems. She became adept at troubleshooting problems, from fixing a malfunctioning water purifier to rigging makeshift repairs to the platform's lighting system. Each success was a victory against the odds, bolstering her confidence and determination to survive. The turning point came one night when a giant shark, one she had begun to recognize by its distinctive markings, approached the platform. Instead of fear, Kara felt a surge of excitement. She realized that her unique situation offered an unparalleled opportunity to study these creatures up close and learn from them in previously impossible ways. This revelation fueled her work, transforming her ordeal into a mission of discovery. Her findings challenged existing theories about shark behavior, particularly their social interactions and hunting patterns under the cover of darkness. Kara hypothesized that the platform's lights had altered the shark's natural behaviors, giving her a rare insight into their adaptability. She documented everything with meticulous detail, knowing that her research could contribute significantly to marine biology and shark conservation efforts. When rescue finally arrived, Kara was not the same person who had come to the Sea Sentinel weeks earlier. She had faced her fears, pushed the limits of her endurance, and gained a deeper understanding of the ocean's mysteries. Her experience had been a trial by fire, forging a new resolve and commitment to her work. The rescue of Dr. Kara Simmons was executed by an elite search and rescue team from the Coast Guard led by Commander Alex Harrison. Commander Harrison, a veteran of numerous high-stakes rescue operations, had received the distress signal from the Sea Sentinel amidst the storm. Understanding the urgency and peril of the situation, he immediately mobilized his team, embarking on a treacherous journey through the tumultuous sea. As they approached the battered research platform, the team skillfully maneuvered their helicopter, battling fierce winds and blinding rain to reach Kara. The sight of her standing alone on the platform was a stark reminder of the resilience of the human spirit. With precision and care, they lowered a rescue harness to Kara, pulling her up into the safety of the helicopter. Commander Harrison and his team's swift and daring rescue ensured that Dr. Simmons's story did not end in tragedy, but became a testament to the power of hope and human determination in the face of nature's most daunting challenges. Back on land, Kara's story became a sensation. Interviews and speaking engagements followed, where she shared her harrowing tale of survival and the scientific discoveries that came from it. However, for Kara, the most significant outcome was the change within herself. She had confronted the unknown, externally and within her psyche, emerging more robust and determined than ever. The publication of her research marked a significant contribution to marine biology, opening new avenues for the study of nocturnal shark behavior. Her work inspired others to explore and appreciate the complexities of marine life, promoting a message of conservation and respect for the ocean's inhabitants. Dr. Kara Simmons returned to the sea many times after her ordeal, each journey fueled by a relentless curiosity and a deep-seated respect for the natural world. The Sea Sentinel and the nightfall predators that had once threatened her survival were symbols of her resilience, a testament to the power of the human spirit in the face of the unknown. The air hung heavy and sweet with the scent of tropical blooms as Sarah Miller waxed her board. It was July 22, 2003, and the sun beat down on the shores of Surf Island, a remote speck off the coast of eastern Australia. Famed for its reef breaks and uncrowded perfection, the island was a surfer's holy grail. Sarah was no ordinary surfer. While others chased the social scene, Sarah was drawn to solitude and the challenge of unpredictable waves. Still in her early 20s, she'd spent years honing her skills on breaks worldwide, finding a fierce joy in pitting herself against the ocean's raw power. Today, fueled by equal parts excitement and nerves, she was finally living her dream, a solo expedition to Surf Island. With provisions, basic medical supplies, and a trusty board, she had everything she needed for a week of pristine, empty waves. The water shimmered a brilliant turquoise as Sarah paddled out past the reef, The air was still, the lull before the afternoon swells she hoped would bring legendary rides. While Surf Island boasted perfect conditions, it was also known for its strong currents and rich marine life, including tiger sharks, powerful predators drawn to the abundance of fish and seals. But Sarah's fear was tempered by respect. Sharks were a vital part of the ecosystem. She'd never had a negative encounter in all her years surfing. She followed basic precautions, avoiding murky waters, wearing dull colors, and staying alert for any signs of aggressive behavior. Yet deep down, she knew the ocean was wild and unpredictable, holding both beauty and danger. A set of swells began building on the horizon, and Sarah positioned herself. Her pulse quickened as the first wave reared, a perfect turquoise wall. She paddled hard, stroked into it, and leaped to her feet. The world was a rush of speed and spray for a timeless moment. Then she glimpsed it, a flash of dark below her board. A flicker of unease ran down her spine. Had it been a dolphin, or... She refused to let fear spoil the perfection. Surf Island's lure was too intense, and the promise of epic rides was too seductive. It was always a calculated risk, this dance with the sea. Sarah spent the rest of the day riding waves. Her initial unease faded, replaced by the exhilaration of pushing her limits. As dusk fell, she made camp on a deserted stretch of beach. Tired but content, she cooked over a small fire, the sound of the waves a comforting lullaby. Alone under a canopy of stars, she felt small yet connected to a world far vaster than her own. The following day, Sarah awoke with the dawn, a deep sense of anticipation stirring. Early light painted the horizon with streaks of gold and pink. After a quick breakfast and carefully checking the swells, she decided to try a different break, a remote spot known for powerful, barreling waves. Paddling out, Sarah felt excitement and the slightest twinge of apprehension. The ocean felt different, a subtle tension in the water, the air unusually still. She brushed it off. Seasoned surfers learned to read the sea's subtle shifts, but sometimes it was just her mind playing tricks. Then, cutting through the water, she saw it. A large dorsal fin sliced toward her with terrifying speed. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Tiger shark, too close, too fast. Instinct took over. She scrambled onto her board, paddling frantically back towards the distant reef. The shark surged beneath, a dark torpedo homing in. She heard the sickening whoosh as it breached behind her, feeling the salt spray on her skin. Terror lent her desperate strength. She might stand a chance if she could reach the reef's shallows. But the shark was relentless. It struck brutally, tearing Sarah's board out from under her. She was thrown into the water, the impact knocking the breath from her lungs. She flailed wildly, then felt the searing pain as teeth sank into her leg. The water turned crimson around her as the shark thrashed, its powerful body dragging her down. Sarah fought back with blind instinct, kicking, clawing, the taste of salt and blood thick in her throat. She managed to break free, gasping and choking, her injured leg a useless rag. Miraculously, the shark didn't attack again. Perhaps momentarily dazed, it circled at a distance, a shadow circling a wounded target. Sarah knew it was only a matter of time. Panic threatened to overwhelm her, but she forced it back. She couldn't give up. There had to be a way out. Then she saw a jagged pinnacle of coral reaching towards the far-off surface. It was a long shot, but her only hope. Summoning all her remaining strength, Sarah began swimming. Each movement sent a fresh wave of agony through her torn leg. The shark shadowed her, waiting. With a final desperate lunge, Sarah reached the coral outcropping. Rough and sharp, it tore at her skin. But she hauled herself onto the ledge, sobbing with pain and exhaustion. She was half out of the water, a precarious perch. The shark continued to circle, frustrated. It rammed the coral, unable to reach her. Sarah knew this wouldn't hold it for long. She scanned the horizon frantically. No boats, not even a speck on the endless blue. The tide was beginning to rise, her refuge slowly disappearing. As the water rose, submerging more of her refuge, Sarah watched for her chance. She had to gamble, one last, desperate move. When the shark was positioned below her, she gathered every ounce of strength and kicked hard at its snout, a vulnerable spot even for powerful predators. The shark recoiled, momentarily stunned. Sarah seized her window of opportunity, plunging into the water and swimming for the reef, ignoring the unbearable pain. The shark, regaining its senses, gave chase, but the reef's maze-like structure worked in her favor. She darted through narrow channels, the predator too large to follow. Finally exhausted and in shock, Sarah found herself in the shallows. Mercifully, a passing fishing boat eventually spotted her frantic waving. They rushed her back to the mainland for emergency treatment. Sarah's battle against the shark left her with life-changing injuries, but she survived. Her ordeal became a testament to courage and a stark reminder of the ocean's unforgiving nature, even amidst its awe-inspiring beauty. Warton Beach was a gash on the otherwise pristine coastline of Western Australia. A handful of shacks clung to the dunes, weathering the relentless ocean spray. This was a place for those with salt in their blood, not for the faint of heart. Kester Byrne was one of them. He worked the fish market, the stink of the sea embedded in his clothes and calloused hands. But it wasn't enough. He craved the open water, the dance with the waves, the taste of freedom on his lips. Great whites were a constant, unspoken presence here. Locals didn't speak their name often, just wary glances towards the dark depths where monstrous shadows lurked. Fishermen whispered stories, but Kester ignored them. He wasn't afraid. He was alive out there on his board. August 17, 2001 was stifling. The sun beat down, turning the market into an oven. Each fish sold, each crate hauled was another step closer to the evening, to the water. His surfboard waited on the roof of his battered truck, a beacon promising release. The full moon rose, a fat pearl in the inky sky. Its light painted the sea in an eerie glow. The usual crowd was gone from Warton. Something was wrong. A tension in the air, a ripple of unease. Kester felt it too, but dismissed it as the moon playing tricks. He paddled out, the only speck against the star-speckled expanse. The water felt alive beneath his board, breathing with an exhilarating and chilling power. With every stroke, he went further, lured by the promise of the perfect wave. Beneath the surface, ancient instincts stirred. The great white sensed movement, a flicker of disruption in its otherwise tranquil world. It wasn't hunger that drove it, but an innate need to patrol, to test the boundaries of its kingdom. This new silhouette against the moonlit sky was a challenge, an intrusion. Kester was oblivious. He waxed his board, focused on nothing but the next big ride. The ocean, usually a raucous playground, now lay eerily still. He was poised, ready, unaware that the predator's eye was fixed on him, calculating. Tonight, Warton Beach wasn't just his escape, but a hunting ground. The attack wasn't an explosion of water and teeth, but a silent, monstrous force from below. 1 second, Kester balanced on his board, poised for glory. The next, the world turned upside down. The great white breached beneath him, an eruption of muscle and primal rage. Its massive jaws, lined with serrated teeth, chomped down not on his body but his board. The fiberglass shattered like brittle bones, flinging him into the air. Kester's scream echoed in the night, a raw cry of terror against nature's indifferent power. He hit the water hard, disoriented and gasping. The shark circled its dark form, a phantom in the churning foam. Each circle tightened, drawing an invisible noose. Kester's survival instincts flared. He kicked and thrashed like a desperate animal fighting for life. His hand found a chunk of board, and he gripped it like a lifeline. The shark lunged again, this time aiming for flesh. Kester swung the board wildly, a feeble shield. The beast bit down, the impact ripping the wood from his grasp and tearing into his leg. Pain seared him, white hot, followed by a sickening numbness. Blood swirled through the water, turning the moon's silver glow into a macabre crimson. The shark was methodical now, tasting, testing. Kester was prey, and it was time to finish the kill. The ocean roared in his ears, each wave a potential tomb. He could see the shore, tantalizingly close yet impossibly far. Another pass, another wound. His ragged screams turned into choked gurgles as salt water burned his lungs. On the beach, the time seemed to warp. One moment, the fishermen were just silhouettes etched against the moon. The next, a horrifying tableau unfolded before them. There were shouts and the frantic splash of a boat being launched. Chaos amidst the eerie calm of the moonlit night. Back in the water, Kester was fading. The shore was a blur, but he clung to its image, to the thought of life beyond the swirling red. Each ragged breath was a victory, however small. Then a glimmer of hope. The boat, a speck gaining ground in the foam. Shouts reached him, rough voices urging him on. The shark sensed the shift in the hunt. It circled warily, unsure of this new intrusion into its domain. Kester felt his grip on consciousness weakens. His shredded leg throbbed with pain unlike any he'd ever known, his muscles spasming from the trauma. Then strong hands grasped him, hauling him over the boat's gunwale. The rough wood scraped against his wounds, sending another jolt of agony through his shattered body. Each scrape felt like fire burning through his open flesh. The boat sped back to shore, a wake of blood trailing behind. Someone pressed filthy rags onto his mangled leg, a desperate attempt to stem the flow. The pressure wasn't enough. Blood seeped through the makeshift bandage, hot and sticky. He could hear prayers, curses, and the relentless beat of his damaged heart pounding against a ribcage that felt ready to break. His vision tunneled, the world dimming. His body was shutting down. The cold crept in, a numbing wave that swept away the searing pain. He could see gashes down to the bone, mangled flesh where his calf muscle should be. A dark dread settled over him. Would he lose the leg or worse, his life? Then, blessedly, nothing. He slipped into a merciful darkness, the ocean's roar fading into a hollow echo. Kester Byrne had cheated death, but only barely. The aftermath would be long and brutal. Scars would mark his body, both seen and unseen. He would walk the land forever changed, marked by the night the great white came for him under the hunter's moon. The sea wasn't just Liam Taylor's job, it was in his blood. Saltwater ran thicker than ambition in his veins. He wasn't some adrenaline junkie seeking cheap thrills. It was the raw power of the sea that drew him, the constant, unpredictable dance between man and nature. Born and raised on the rugged Tasmanian coast, he'd fought riptides as a boy and wrestled fishing nets as a teenager. The U.S. Coast Guard had been a natural progression, and the Search and Rescue Division was his calling. Liam wasn't built for comfort. His wiry frame hid muscles honed by endless hours battling currents, not barbells. The relentless wind had weathered his face, carving lines around his eyes that spoke of countless battles won, and a few close calls he preferred not to dwell on. Some missions haunted him on sleepless nights, but those were the ones that fueled him, reminding him why he put on that uniform each morning. This stormy afternoon, November 12, 2009, was a reminder writ large. The distress call crackled over the chopper's radio, a garbled mix of panic and static barely cutting through the storm's howl. A group of reckless kids, no doubt high on hormones and a false sense of invincibility, had taken a battered dinghy out, miles past common sense and into the churning maw of the storm. Now they clung like terrified insects to a wave-battered rock, the ocean playing with them before delivering the final crushing blow. Liam knew the drill. Suit up, check his gear twice, banter with his crew to mask the underlying tension. He'd danced this dance countless times. The ocean, his stage, desperate people, his audience, and him, the unlikely hero trying to cheat nature's ruthless game. The chopper descended, the world becoming a swirling mix of gray and angry blue. He'd faced sharks before, drawn by panicked thrashing and the scent of blood in the water. Most of the time it was tense but manageable. But out here in this storm-tossed wilderness, surrounded by vulnerable prey, a knot of fear tightened in his gut. It was the fear he'd harness, turn into the razor-sharp focus that kept him alive. Below, the teens were specks against the unforgiving rock, each breaking wave a death sentence waiting to happen. Time wasn't a luxury they had. It was his turn to step into the chaos and bring them back one by one. He promised himself with every mission, leave no one behind. Today that promise tasted like salt and steel, with a hint of something darker lurking just beneath the surface. Liam worked methodically. His voice was a lifeline for the terrified teens, a mix of calm commands and fierce encouragement cutting through the storm's roar. He clipped them into the harness one by one, giving them a brief reassuring nod before signaling for the winch. Each ascent brought hope, each empty return of the basket a twist of tension in his gut. Below, the great white grew bolder. Its passes were closer now, its gaze fixed on the frantic activity above. Liam knew it was a matter of time. He was the interloper, the challenge to the predator's dominion. The teens were nearly transparent, just one more terrified boy clinging to the rock, his eyes wide with terror. He shouted out to the boy, but his approach spooked the shark. It surged upwards, a torpedo of muscle and teeth, its massive jaws stretched wide, a gaping maw from a nightmare. Time, he seemed to freeze. Liam acted on instinct, shoving the teen roughly aside just as the shark struck. Pain exploded in his leg. The world turned red. He thrashed, the water erupting around him in a frenzy of foam and blood. The shark twisted, frustrated, its teeth still snagged on his wetsuit. Its prehistoric eye locked with his, cold and unyielding. Through the haze of shock and pain, his training kicked in. Don't panic. Signal. Fight back. He jabbed his rescue knife towards the shark's flank, desperately attempting to dislodge it. From above, he heard shouts, the whine of the winch reaching a frantic pitch. The shark released its grip with a sickening twist, retreating momentarily into the bloody depths. Strong hands were hauling him upwards, the pain secondary to the rush of icy air hitting his face. Breathless and disoriented, he clung to the basket, staring up at the faces of his crew, a blur of concern and grim determination against the swirling gray backdrop. On the chopper deck, it was controlled chaos. Rough hands cut away his wetsuit, revealing the ragged wound across his calf. Blood pumped in a sickening rhythm with his frantic heartbeat. A medic pressed a gauze to the wound, but it was futile, a desperate attempt to stem a crimson tide. Through the haze, he caught a glimpse of the last of the teens being pulled in, shock etched on his young face. They were safe. In that blurry, pain-filled moment, the sacrifice felt worth it. The chopper changed course, cutting through the storm like an angry blade toward the promise of help. Yet he knew the journey was far from over. His vision tunneled, the world fading to the throb of his mangled leg, the distant chop of the rotor blades, and a sense of impending darkness. He'd faced the ocean's fury, the predator from the depths. It had taken a piece of him, a bloody toll, for his unwavering commitment to saving lives. The battle wasn't just against the elements or the relentless pain. As exhaustion washed over him, a tide more potent than the raging sea below, he knew the next fight would be on land. There would be surgeries, rehab frustration, and the prehistoric predator's lingering ghost lurking in his nightmares. The scars he carried would be both a burden and a badge of honor. It was the price of being a Coast Guard rescue swimmer, a price he'd willingly pay repeatedly because in those moments when lives hung by a thread, he was their only lifeline. The Western Australian coast wasn't a place for the faint of heart. The ocean was a force of nature, carving the land with relentless fury. Wind-blasted cliffs stared down at sea, the color of churned steel. And below those deceptively beautiful waters lurked predators older than time itself. Elias Thorne loved it with a fierce, possessive passion. Salt was in his blood, the creak of old timbers more comforting than any song on land. His weathered face, etched with a lifetime of squinting into the sun, held a quiet contentment rarely found ashore. Fishing wasn't just his livelihood, it was his sanctuary. He knew these waters like others know their backyards, and understood the shifting moods of the sea and the creatures lurking within. Today, August 7th, 2002, something was off. The usual dawn chorus of gulls screeching and vying for scraps was absent. The air hung heavy, the tang of salt replaced by an almost metallic scent that pricked at the back of his throat. His boat, the weathered Sea Hag, felt sluggish, fighting the invisible hand of an unnatural current. Elias cursed under his breath. His instincts, usually as reliable as the tides, screamed at him to turn back. But a lifetime at sea, he had also taught him that fear was a dangerous companion. He'd ridden out storms that turned the stomachs of younger men, outwitted the tax collectors who patrolled the docks, and faced down loneliness that could swallow a person whole. He wasn't about to let a vague sense of unease chase him back to shore. He forced himself to focus, the familiar rituals of preparing his lines a soothing balm. Each knot was tied carefully. Each hook was checked and rechecked. The open ocean was an unforgiving mistress. The slightest lapse could mean disaster. Yet even as he went through the motions, that gnawing sense of wrongness clung to him like a stubborn fish scale. The sun climbed higher, turning the water into a molten mirror. Sweat trickled down his neck, the relentless glare making his eyes throb. Usually he relished this battle against the elements, but today it felt less like a challenge and more like a warning whispered by the endless, empty sea. The first bite could have been a cleaner catch. His line went slack, then jerked violently, tremoring his arm. A surge of hope flared within him, finally a sign of life in this strange, desolate patch of ocean. He braced himself, reeling in the unseen beast with practiced strength. Then the monstrous form breached the surface, and Elias's blood ran cold. It was a tiger shark, easily the biggest he'd ever seen. The creature was pure power, its eyes black and unyielding. This wasn't a curious bystander, but an apex predator claiming its territory. Elias was a man who could have been more easily spooked. He'd faced rogue waves, sudden storms, and even the occasional run-in with pirates desperate to target a lone fisherman. But this was different. The shark circled his boat, its movements a disturbing mix of deliberate focus and simmering rage. The sea hag, always a source of defiant pride, now felt like a flimsy eggshell against the might of this prehistoric monster. His mind raced. He knew appeasement was pointless. This shark wasn't after a free meal, it sensed a rival. If he stayed passive, he'd become the prey. Adrenaline spiked his blood, a primal echo of his place in the food chain. He wouldn't go down without a fight. Elias began to move, not with panic but with strategic intent. His hands fumbled for a flare gun, but he knew its fiery warning wouldn't deter the shark for long. He scanned the deck. Gaff hook? Too short. Oars? It's useless against those jaws. Then his gaze fell upon his fishing rods, their tips gleaming in the sunlight. It was desperate and reckless, but something clicked in his fisherman's brain in that desperate moment. Elias unhooked the rod, snapping off the line. The metal tip glinted dangerously. Hefting it like a spear, he moved to the boat's edge. The shark surged, a dark wave rushing towards him. Elias bellowed a wordless battle cry to steady his nerves more than frighten the beast. He lunged, the metal rod plunging towards the shark's massive eye. It was a glancing blow, but it drew blood and a furious thrash. For a heart-stopping moment, the shark retreated, its wounded eye clouding the water with an eerie crimson swirl. Elias didn't have time to celebrate his small victory. The predator wouldn't give up so easily. Elias knew the shark's retreat was temporary. Wounded and enraged, it would regroup and strategize. He had mere seconds to act. The sea hag was taking on water, the shark's earlier nudges having done more damage than he initially realized. Time wasn't on his side. Frantically, he lashed his remaining gear to anything that would float: empty fuel cans, a battered cooler, his life vest. The makeshift raft was pitifully crude, but it was his only hope. He worked with the desperate focus of a man fighting for his life, his fisherman's mind clinging to the tiniest thread of possibility. The shark returned, its assault on the boat more frenzied. Wood splintered and cracked, the vessel listing dangerously. Now soaked and breathing hard, Elias knew his time had run out. With a final defiant bellow, he leaped from the sinking sea hag, landing awkwardly on his lashed-together raft. He watched his beloved boat disappear beneath the waves, the monstrous form of the shark circling the wreckage like a grim victor. Adrift on the vast ocean, his situation hit him with crushing force. He was utterly alone. Fear gnawed at his resolve, a far more dangerous foe than any shark. But underneath, a stubborn flicker of determination refused to die. He knew the drill: signal flares gone, ration the meager bits of water and food he'd salvaged. And then a miracle, a far ship. He screamed until his voice cracked, waving his tattered shirt like a madman. The ship changed course, a lumbering savior against the endless blue. When they hauled him aboard, he was barely conscious. Elias survived, but some of him remained adrift in those lonely waters. The scars on his weathered skin were a badge of honor, a grim testament to the ocean's power. He never returned to the open sea, the place that had both sustained and nearly taken his life. The white sand beaches and turquoise waters of Bora Bora shimmered like a dream, a postcard paradise plucked from an artist's imagination. It was the perfect backdrop for the beginning of Noah and Elise Fournier's new life together. Fresh from a whirlwind wedding celebration in their bustling hometown of Seattle, they'd escaped to this South Pacific oasis for the honeymoon of their dreams. Noah, with his tall, athletic build and an easy smile that crinkled at the corners of his deep blue eyes, was a man born for the sea. A competitive swimmer in college, he now had a high-stress investment banking job. The ocean was his sanctuary, the place where he felt most alive. Elise was his perfect counterpoint, a petite whirlwind of energy with her infectious laugh and bright green eyes. An aspiring writer, she approached the world with wide-eyed curiosity, her adventurous spirit tempered by a touch of trepidation when it came to open water. This morning, June 12, 2006, held a promise of adventure as they excitedly donned their snorkeling gear. The lagoon beckoned, a shimmering expanse of clear water promising vibrant coral gardens and glimpses of tropical fish. Still mastering her strokes, Elise stayed closer to shore while Noah ventured further out with the effortless grace of a natural swimmer. He'd wave occasionally, his muscular form disappearing into the deeper blues where the reef sloped away, a comforting presence even amidst her slight unease. Bull sharks were a known part of the local ecosystem, their blunt snouts and powerful bodies sometimes spotted patrolling deeper waters. However, in these shallow, crystal-clear lagoons, they were a rare sight. Predators by nature were adaptable and followed the food sources, sometimes leading them into unexpected territories. And occasionally they made mistakes. The first hours were idyllic. Elise squealed in delight at spotting a clownfish nestled in an anemone, her fear of the deep fading with each discovery. With Noah as her anchor, she grew bolder, venturing further out. The water was a warm embrace, the mask offering a portal into a breathtaking world of iridescent fish darting among coral formations, painted in colors she'd never imagined. Lost in her wonder, she didn't notice the subtle shift in the water beneath her, a shadow sliding along the reef's edge. The bull shark was young and inexperienced, and its hunting instincts were triggered by the splashing movements and the flash of Elise's pale skin. Hunger mixed with a surge of predatory curiosity overrode caution. Yet even the shark was unprepared for what followed. The explosion of adrenaline it received and the taste of neoprene instead of flesh as its jaws closed around Elise's leg. For Elise, the world tilted. The water around her turned an impossible red, pain lancing through her. Panic flooded her, a primal scream trapped beneath the water's surface as the shark thrashed, confused and disoriented. Then a substantial force clamped around her arm and she was being pulled, the pressure on her leg excruciating. Noah had seen the change in the water, the flicker of shadow. His heart turned to ice. He knew that form instantly. Elise was oblivious, too far away, too focused on the wonders beneath her. He swam with every ounce of strength, his mind a single, desperate command: reach her. Realizing its mistake, the shark released Elise but thrashed nearby, a dangerous, wounded presence. Noah reached her, his voice a harsh shout over the roar of his blood in his ears. He shouted to Elise to grab on him with urgency. Elise gripped his shoulders, her eyes wide with terror. Blood swirled around them, attracting more danger with each passing second. Working together, they half swam, half dragged themselves towards the pale blur of the shore. Each stroke was agony for Elise, the waves slapping her raw wound. Noah's strength was faltering. The shore was tantalizingly close but seemed to drift further with every kick. The water churned beside them, a chilling reminder of the predator lurking just out of sight. Then something miraculous, voices yelling, the splash of a boat. Local fishermen, drawn by the commotion, were reaching for them. Elise's trembling subsided on the rough wood of the boat, replaced by waves of nausea and the growing numbness in her leg. Noah refused to leave her side, whispering words of love and fierce promises that she would live. The shore blurred and the pain dimmed. She slipped in and out of consciousness, the world reduced to his voice and the steady slap of waves against the boat. Recovery was an ordeal. Surgeries, the phantom pain, and the nightmares that stole what little sleep she got. Noah was her unwavering rock, putting his life on hold to care for her. Back home, away from the turquoise paradise, he became her advocate. They channeled the trauma, campaigning for stricter safety protocols in tourist locations and for funding research that could help prevent such attacks. Their marriage was forged not only in love but in the shared trauma of the lagoon. The scars on Elise's leg were a constant reminder, but so was the knowledge that they'd faced the unimaginable and survived. The bull shark had almost stolen their future, but it had given them a shared purpose. Their honeymoon became a catalyst, their ordeal a testament to resilience, and their voices a force for change in the fragile balance between humans and the wild world of the sea. A stretch of ocean brimming with life can be found off the rugged South African coast, where the Atlantic and Indian Oceans converge. Here, bold explorers from all corners of the globe come together, enticed by the possibility of exciting interactions with the sea's most powerful creatures. One of them is Colin Thomas, an experienced adventurer who craves adrenaline. Colin and his friends eagerly wait on the ship's deck, filled with a mix of excitement and nervousness, as the sun rises slowly, casting orange and gold hues. Today signifies the conclusion of extensive months of getting ready for a cage diving excursion to ultimately encounter one of the ocean's top predators, the great white shark, Excitement fills the air as the crew gets ready for the day's adventure. Wetsuits are put on, harnesses fastened, and cameras prepared to capture all the thrilling moments. With anticipation gleaming in his eyes, Colin surveys the surroundings, the shining ocean, the rugged coastline in the distance, and the electric atmosphere in the air. While the boat navigates towards the planned dive spot, Colin experiences a familiar adrenaline rush in his body. The salty breeze tousles his hair as he eagerly waits to encounter one of the ocean's most famous creatures while gazing at the horizon. Hours go by in a whirlwind of anticipation and excitement until at last the boat arrives at its destination. The team quickly gets to work, setting up the cage and smoothly lowering it into the water. Colin feels his heart race with anticipation as he prepares for the most thrilling dive of his life. Excitedly, Colin puts on his wetsuit and fastens his harness, getting ready mentally for what's to come. As he enters, the robust and impressive cage stands tall in front of him, prepared to lower him into the ocean's depths. While the cage descends into the water, Colin experiences a strong sense of excitement. Beneath him, he spotted many vibrant fish swimming, yet the predator he sought was nowhere to be found. Suddenly he notices a large silhouette gliding effortlessly beneath the surface of the water. It is a 15-foot great white shark, the dominant predator of the ocean. Colin experiences a moment of fear but quickly becomes fascinated by the shark's impressive strength and elegance. This is exactly what he desired: to witness nature in its finest form, to experience the thrill of being in proximity to such an amazing sea creature. However, as Colin is relishing the underwater world, a negative event occurs. All of a sudden, the cage abruptly shakes, and Colin immediately notices that something is wrong. He starts to panic as he realizes something is wrong. Desperately, he gazes upwards at the surface, where the crew is yelling and making frantic gestures. At that moment, he notices a broken steel line dangling from the side of the cage. A line that was meant to tether the cage to the boat. But it was loose because of a malfunction while the cage was being lowered. He feels his heart beating rapidly in his chest while observing with terror the shark circling nearby, drawn by the commotion and sight of the metal enclosure floating underwater. Colin's mind races as time appears to move slowly, looking for an escape from his underwater situation. The twisted metal bars of the damaged cage serve as a somber reminder of the imminent danger lurking close by, offering little hope. However, Colin remains steadfast in his refusal to surrender. Summoning all his courage, Colin starts to look for a way to get away. His hands frantically search the bars of the cage, looking for a potential weakness in its design that could give him a chance to escape the enclosure. Just when things appear to be at their worst, he suddenly sees a larger gap in the cage's bars, only just wide enough for him to squeeze through. Refusing to give up, Colin forces his way through the narrow opening, disregarding the intense agony of his skin scraping against the merciless metal. He emerges from the cage wreckage, putting in a last burst of energy, his lungs craving air as he kicks fiercely towards the surface. He sees a whirlwind of movement and noise surrounding him: the turbulent water, the far-off calls of the sailors, the unending thumping of his own heart. Finally, he emerges from the water, taking in deep breaths as the comforting sunlight bathes him in a sense of liberation. However, the challenge is not finished yet. The shark, determined to capture its prey, follows Colin as he emerges to the surface. Colin spots the shark's fins sticking out of the water surrounding where he is located. Colin always positions himself facing the shark, understanding its predatory behavior. With every pass, the fin moves nearer to where Colin is positioned. Colin slowly backs away from the shark, ensuring that he is constantly maintaining eye contact with it. From afar, the boat spots Colin drifting in the ocean and zooms towards him. Within moments, the boat reaches Colin, and the crew also spots the circling shark. The boat's captain readies his bang stick, an underwater shotgun, and gets Colin ready, letting him know they are ready to defend against the shark if it decides to strike. All of a sudden, the shark shifts course, detecting the approaching large ship getting closer to its target. Due to the shark's altered behavior, the crew hastily tosses a buoy connected to a rope and swiftly brings Colin back to the deck. After being lifted onto the boat by the crew, Colin slumps from fatigue with his body bruised and beaten but miraculously unharmed. He is still alive. While lying on the deck and looking up at the vast sky, Colin feels deeply grateful for the opportunity to start over. The encounter has transformed him, increasing his understanding of how delicate life is and the marvels of the natural world. Mangrove forests of the Solomon Islands hummed with life. Salt water mingled with the scent of decaying leaves, a spicy perfume that clung to the humid air. This tangled web of roots and brackish channels was a cradle for the ocean's most feared predators, bull sharks. Known for their aggression and ability to tolerate fresh water, they ruled these murky waters. Dr. Anya Petrova was in her element. The dingy research boat barely contained her energy as she scanned the shallows. Years of dedication had led her to this place, this opportunity to study bull sharks in their most vulnerable yet crucial stage, infancy. Today, May 23, 2003, was the culmination of countless grant proposals, sleepless nights poring over data, and the endless battle against the skepticism that shadowed female scientists like herself. Their goal was simple in theory, dangerous in practice: tag juvenile sharks to track their growth and movement patterns. This data was vital. Bull sharks were increasingly threatened, but understanding their nursery habitats was critical to any conservation effort. Anya's heart pounded with excitement and apprehension as they spotted the first pup, a sleek shadow barely 2 feet long. She donned her gear, a sense of purpose overriding any lingering fear. These sharks were not the mindless monsters of movies. They were creatures to be respected, and their behavior was a complex code Anya was determined to decipher. The team carefully corralled, tagged, and released several pups. Each was a tiny victory, a data point in the fight to protect this misunderstood species. The sun beat down, turning the shallows into a shimmering soup. Even under the relentless heat, Anya couldn't tear herself away. The water here was a maze of channels, the mangrove roots like gnarled fingers obscuring anything below the surface. Anya was focused on a wriggling pup, oblivious to the subtle shift in the underwater world. Bull sharks were fiercely protective mothers. They lurked near their nurseries, unseen guardians against any potential threat. Food was secondary to this maternal instinct. Anya had dedicated her life to understanding sharks and dispelling the fear that surrounded them. She knew the risks, the calculated gamble of entering their domain. Yet she couldn't prepare for the speed, the raw power that would forever change her life. The mother shark didn't announce itself. There was no telltale fin cutting the surface, no ominous darkening of the water. Anya knelt in the shallows, focused on maneuvering the wriggling pup into the net. Her world smelled mud, the darting fish scattering from her movements, the squawk of a startled heron. Then a shift, not in the water but within herself. A primal, instinctive unease settled into her bones. It was a feeling she'd learned to trust over years of fieldwork, an internal alarm bell signaling unseen danger. She lifted her gaze, scanning the surroundings. The mangrove roots loomed, creating deceptive pockets of shadow in the murky water. Had she had something move there? A flicker just beyond her reach of vision? The attack was a blur of pain and chaos. One moment she was searching. The next, a massive form exploded from the murky depths beneath her. The mother shark, twice the size of Anya herself, struck with blinding speed. Its jaws clamped down on her thigh, the serrated teeth tearing through flesh and muscle. Anya squirmed, more from shock than agony. Adrenaline surged, giving her a burst of unnatural strength. She thrashed, trying to break free, but the shark held with crushing power. Her vision blurred, the world tilting as the shark dragged her deeper into the mangrove maze. Her team was shouting, a panicked chorus above the thrashing water. Someone sprinted for the boat, the engine a desperate roar as they scrambled to reach her. Anya felt a sickening wave of nausea. Was this how it would end, not in a sterile lab but in this ancient cradle of predators? A surge of defiance flared brighter than fear. She wouldn't go down without a fight. With her free hand, she fumbled for her tagging knife, the small blade a pathetic defense. Gasping for air, she plunged it towards the shark's massive eye. It was a desperate, instinctual move. The shark reacted with a violent jerk, releasing Anya in a spray of blood and seawater. Momentarily disoriented, it thrashed blindly, giving her precious seconds. She swam with ragged strokes, clawing towards the boat now frantically churning towards her. Strong hands reached out, hauling her over the side as teeth snapped at empty air. Aboard the boat, the world dissolved into a red haze. Someone was applying frantic pressure to her mangled leg. their voice a distant echo against the roaring in her ears. The mangrove roots blurred as the boat sped away, leaving a crimson trail in their wake. Anya fought against the encroaching darkness, her scientist mind clinging to a single desperate thought. They had to get back and warn others. The field research station was a blur of activity. Rough hands cut away her wetsuit, exposing the gruesome wound. A tourniquet bit into her flesh, the world narrowing to a single screaming point of pain. She drifted in and out of consciousness, snippets of voices reaching her, radio calls, the thrum of a helicopter's approaching blades. When she awoke again, the sterile white of a hospital room momentarily disoriented her. Her leg throbbed relentlessly, a monstrous weight beneath the sheets. Anya was alive, but a part of her remained in that murky water, forever changed. News of the attack rippled through the conservation community. Shock, sympathy, and a hint of that old familiar fear. The fear that fueled sensational headlines and hampered accurate understanding of sharks. Anya used that fear as fuel. She gave interviews from her hospital bed, her voice weak but with a newfound intensity. The story wasn't just about her. It was about the bull sharks, their vulnerability despite their power, and the delicate balance in those hidden mangrove nurseries. Her recovery was long and brutal. Physical therapy, phantom pains, the lingering trauma of the attack. Yet Anya emerged stronger, her mission unyielding. The bull sharks of the Solomon Islands had given her a voice, which she would use to fight for them, to change the narrative from fear to fascination, from monster to marvel. The coast of Mozambique was known for its pristine beaches and vibrant coral reefs. Yet beneath the turquoise surface lurked a world of forgotten wonders. Dr. Maya Lin was obsessed with those hidden depths, her relentless curiosity propelling her toward groundbreaking discoveries. Today, July 16, 2004, promised a revelation, a glimpse into a world untouched by time. The locals whispered tales of underwater caves near Bazarudo Island, their descriptions tinged with a primal reverence. They claimed the caves harbored a relic of the past, the lair of a shark species believed extinct for millions of years. Maya wasn't one for superstitions, but the geological readings were undeniable. These caves could unlock secrets about the evolution of marine predators. The water shimmered as her team descended. Unlike the vibrant coral reefs surrounding Mozambique, this submerged world was bleak, the volcanic rock creating a labyrinth of shadows. Maya's heart pounded in her chest, a mix of exhilaration and the tickle of the unknown. They were pioneers here, explorers in the truest sense. The cave entrance was narrower than expected, barely large enough for a single diver to pass through. Maya gestured for her team to remain outside. This initial sweep was hers alone. Squeezing through the narrow opening, her powerful dive lights cut through the gloom. The cave walls were strangely smooth, the rock sculpted from eons of unseen currents. A thrill shot through her at the first sign of life. Fossilized remains embedded in the rock, remnants of creatures long dead. They were on the right track. This cave system was a treasure trove of natural history. Then a flicker of movement in the distance caught her eye. Her first thought was of a large fish disturbed by her presence. Yet as the creature turned, revealing its sleek profile, Maya's blood ran cold. It was a shark impossibly large for the confined space and bearing an archaic, flattened head, unlike any species in her extensive database. The creature seemed just as surprised, its eyes glinting in the artificial light. With a surge of both dread and joy, Maya knew the local legends were true. She was staring at a ghost from the prehistoric past, a creature that should not exist in these modern waters. The scientific implications were staggering, but her immediate problem was distinctly more visceral. How to escape a predator that had outlived the dinosaurs within the suffocating confines of an underwater cave. Maya's mind raced. Panic was a luxury she couldn't afford. Retreating wasn't an option. The narrow opening wouldn't allow her and the massive shark to pass. She had to find a way out, hoping against hope that her team was still positioned near the entrance. The shark, seemingly recovering from its initial surprise, started to circle. Its prehistoric eyes tracked her every movement, a calculating intelligence behind the primal instinct. Maya knew it was sizing her up, weighing the risk of attacking this strange creature that had invaded its domain. Suddenly, the water exploded around her. The shark lunged, its massive jaws seeming to fill the entire passageway. Maya reacted instinctively, jamming her dive light into the creature's mouth. The shark thrashed, the light shattering, plunging them both into darkness. Pain lanced through her arm as teeth grazed her skin. She fought mindlessly, kicking and punching at the rough hide. The shark was disoriented, its ancient instincts ill-prepared for this resistance. With a final surge of desperate strength, Maya pushed away, scrambling back towards the entrance. The sudden light blinded her momentarily. Frantically, she signaled, her gestures frantic above the surface. Her team, alerted by the disturbance, reacted with the efficiency of countless drills. A lifeline appeared before her, a thick rope trailing into the depths. Grabbing it, she felt herself being hauled upwards. The world narrowed to the sliver of light above and the monstrous shape surging below her. Her ascent was agonizingly slow. The shark, enraged, snapped at her heels. She screamed, pain exploding in her leg as teeth tore through her wetsuit. Strong hands reached for her, pulling her roughly from the water and into the relative safety of the boat. She collapsed onto the deck, sobs racking her body. Blood swirled around her injured leg, but the worst of the damage seemed superficial. She was alive. Her team worked with swift precision. One bandaged her wounds, another radioed for backup. Their voices were a soothing hum against the roar of adrenaline in her ears. Below the surface, the prehistoric predator lingered, a sentinel at the mouth of the cave. It had claimed its territory, and the price of Maya's groundbreaking discovery was etched in her flesh. The media circus descended, hungry for sensational headlines and grainy footage of the unknown creature. Scientists demanded access, their excitement tinged with a hint of predatory ambition. Maya shut them all out, her mind a storm of conflicting emotions. She'd always believed in pursuing knowledge, but this felt different. The shark, a relic of a bygone era, had survived eons undisturbed. Did she have the right to expose its sanctuary to a world bent on exploitation under the guise of discovery? It took days of difficult conversations, a translator bridging the gap between her world of scientific jargon and their deep-rooted reverence for the natural order. In the end, a compromise was reached. Maya would publish her findings, meticulous data, and observations, but the cave's location would remain a secret. The scientific community would have to content themselves with the knowledge that somewhere, in the hidden depths of the Mozambique coast, an echo of the prehistoric world remained. Maya's injuries healed, but the encounter left a lasting mark. She returned to her expeditions, a newfound caution woven into her inherent boldness. The ocean still held endless mysteries, but she now understood that some secrets were better left undisturbed. Kyle Anderson's adventure began in 1998, off the coast of a small unknown island in the Bahamas. An avid snorkeler and a lover of the sea, Kyle had heard rumors of an uncharted reef from old fisherman tales at the local marina. These tales spoke of a vibrant underwater kingdom, untouched and hidden from the world, a place that even the most seasoned divers had never seen. Kyle, driven by curiosity and the thrill of discovery, set out to find this mysterious reef. The morning was bright, with the sun casting a shimmering path across the calm sea as Kyle set off from the marina in a small rented boat. The air was filled with the salty tang of the sea and the promise of adventure. After hours of searching, guided by the cryptic clues from the fishermen's tales, Kyle finally stumbled upon the reef. It was a breathtaking sight. The water was clearer than he had seen before, revealing a teeming ecosystem below. Coral formations in every conceivable color stretched beneath him, housing many sea creatures that darted in and out of the crevices. Schools of brightly colored fish swam past, seemingly undisturbed by his presence. Overwhelmed by the reef's beauty, Kyle wasted no time and dove into the water. For a while, everything seemed perfect. He was an intruder in an alien world, yet he felt a sense of belonging. That was until he noticed the shadows circling him from a distance in the water. A sense of unease crept over Kyle as he realized he wasn't alone. Bull sharks, known for their aggression, had interested him. These weren't ordinary bull sharks, though. Kyle observed that they seemed more prominent and aggressive than any he had read about. A unique species, perhaps native only to this reef. Panic set in when one of the sharks charged at him, its jaws wide open. Kyle's instincts took over. He swam as fast as he could towards the surface, narrowly avoiding the shark's bite. His heart pounded as he climbed back into the boat, the sharks now openly circling below. He realized he was far from safety. The engine had been damaged, likely during his frantic escape. Stranded, Kyle watched the sunset, casting long shadows over the water. He was miles from the mainland and could not call for help. As darkness enveloped the world around him, Kyle felt the weight of his isolation. The boat drifted aimlessly until it hit something solid. Kyle stumbled out onto a small, uninhabited island. The relief of land under his feet was short-lived as he realized the sharks were still a threat, patrolling the waters around his temporary refuge. The island offered little resources, but Kyle knew he had to survive. He remembered the tales of sailors and castaways from his childhood readings. Using those stories as inspiration, Kyle began to fashion rudimentary tools from what the island offered: sticks, stones, and the wreckage from the boat. Over the next few days, Kyle's life became a cycle of survival tasks. He collected rainwater for drinking, fashioned spears for fishing, and built a shelter from palm fronds. However, the sharks remained a constant threat, their fins visible from the shore, reminding him of his precarious situation. As days turned into weeks, Kyle's initial despair transformed into determination. He studied the sharks' patterns, looking for a way to evade them and return to civilization. Kyle's ingenuity led him to construct a raft, using parts of the boat's wreckage and tying them with vines and ropes from the island. The day of his escape attempt arrived. Kyle pushed the raft into the water when the sharks seemed least active at dawn. His heart raced as he paddled quietly, trying to make as little noise as possible. The open sea loomed large before him, both a barrier and a path to freedom. As he moved further from the island, the sight of fins trailing him reignited his fear. But Kyle's planning paid off. The sharks, perhaps confused by the raft or simply uninterested in pursuing him further, eventually fell behind. After hours of tense paddling, Kyle was rescued by a passing fishing boat, and his raft was spotted in the distance. Back on land, his story of survival, ingenuity, and the previously unknown reef, now dubbed the Reef's Secret by the media, captivated the world. Kyle's ordeal left him with a profound respect for the ocean and its inhabitants, a reminder of the fine line between beauty and danger. He vowed to return to the sea with a newfound caution and reverence for its mysteries. He felt a more profound calling beyond the fleeting fame. The unique species of bull sharks that had both threatened and inadvertently saved his life sparked his curiosity. He pondered over their behavior, which seemed different from any other shark species documented by science. Months passed, and Kyle's determination only grew stronger. He partnered with marine biologists and conservationists, forming a team dedicated to studying the reef and its shark inhabitants. Their goal was twofold: to understand this unique marine ecosystem and to ensure its protection from potential exploitation or destruction due to the sudden interest it had garnered. The expedition back to the reef was fraught with excitement and apprehension. Kyle, now a survivor and a conservation advocate, led the team with a sense of purpose. Upon arrival, they found the reef just as vibrant and teeming with life as Kyle remembered. The team set up underwater cameras, conducted environmental assessments, and most importantly, studied the sharks' behavior from a safe distance. Their findings were groundbreaking. The sharks were unique subspecies of bull sharks, showing remarkable social behaviors and hunting strategies. Kyle's first-hand experiences and the team's scientific observations provided invaluable insights into the shark's ecological role within the reef. The study contributed to marine biology and highlighted the importance of preserving untouched ecosystems. Kyle became an advocate for marine conservation, using his story to underline the interconnectedness of all life forms and the impact of human activity on the ocean. The conclusion of the expedition was bittersweet. While the team had made significant contributions to marine science, Kyle knew that the reef's future remained uncertain in a world where natural wonders often succumb to exploitation. Resilience and beauty untouched and respected. Kyle's adventure had come full circle. From a lone survivor to a catalyst for conservation, his journey underscored the profound impact one individual can have on understanding and preserving our natural world. The incident was a testament to the ocean's mysteries, waiting to be discovered, respected, and protected for generations. The sun beat down on the turquoise waters of False Bay, South Africa. It was October 5, 2001, and a chill hung. This deceptive calm masked the teeming life just beneath the waves. False Bay was notorious as a hunting ground for great white sharks drawn to the area by a large seal colony. Jack Brody, a seasoned diver with a weathered exterior, gripped the side of the dive boat. Years of submersion had left their mark, etching lines into his skin. Today was no ordinary dive. Jack and his small film crew were embarking on a mission to capture the most awe-inspiring footage of a great white shark ever seen. This was the culmination of Jack's years of dedication and obsession. Fueled by a mix of fascination and a thrill-seeker's itch, he had traversed the globe in pursuit of these majestic predators. Beside him stood his cameraman, Ben Morris, a younger man in his 20s. Ben's excitement was palpable. A diver himself, he worshipped the ground Jack walked on and saw this documentary as his big break. The boat captain, Peter, a weathered local, kept a vigilant watch on the shifting weather. The plan was straightforward yet laden with peril. Using chum to attract a shark, they would lower a robust steel cage into the water. Armed with only a camera, Jack would enter the cage and attempt to capture the ultimate close-up footage of the predator. The stakes were high, but so was the potential reward. As the cage was lowered, Jack felt a familiar cocktail of fear and exhilaration. He'd had close calls before. Cage breaches, mechanical failures. That's why he was the best, he'd tell himself. Pushing the boundaries came with a price. True to its reputation, False Bay lived up to its name. Within moments of the chum hitting the water, colossal shadows began to encircle. Jack's heart raced as great whites. Massive torpedo-shaped creatures emerged from the depths. They were a testament to nature's unbridled power, efficiently 15 feet in length, their skin a patchwork of scars and mottling. These were not just sharks, they were living, breathing marvels of the sea. Jack signaled his readiness. He donned his gear, mask, and oxygen tank with practiced movements. His heart pounded not out of fear but the moment's sheer intensity. He steadied his breathing, then slid into the cage. As the crew lowered it into the swirling water, a sense of anticipation shot through him. Face to face with a great white was as close as a human could confront the untamed wild. Jack always said that the sharks weren't nasty. They were pure instincts honed over millions of years. The fatal misunderstanding between humans and these creatures led to tragedy. Tempted by the desire to capture the perfect shot, Jack made a fatal mistake. The shark, a whirlwind of muscle and teeth, hammered the cage relentlessly. Each impact sent shockwaves through the metal, jarring his bones. Yet through the chaos, Jack saw a split-second gap in the relentless onslaught. A fleeting chance for the impossible image. Logic and years of training warred with a reckless hunger for the ultimate shot. In that moment, the thrill-seeker overwhelmed the seasoned diver. Driven by a mix of adrenaline and ego, Jack abandoned the safety of the cage. He wriggled through the damaged bars, thrusting his camera towards the swirling predator. The time he seemed to warp. The shark, sensing the intrusion, swiveled with impossible speed. It lunged, massive jaws gaping. Jack, half exposed, froze in horror. His camera was knocked away, a useless piece of plastic against the raw might of the ocean's apex predator. The shark's teeth closed around his outstretched arm. Pain exploded, white-hot and blinding. With a primal scream, Jack was yanked violently outward. The twisted cage bars dug into his flesh, trapping him in a horrifying tug-of-war between man and beast. He thrashed, desperate, a cornered animal fighting for its life. From the boat above came screams of terror, Ben witnessing his mentor's plight. Peter frantically revved the engine, lurching the boat forward to disrupt the unfolding horror. But it was too late. With a sickening, tearing force, the shark wrenched Jack free. In the wake of the massive predator, he tumbled through the water, a broken doll. His mangled arm trailed a crimson cloud. Shock mercifully numbed the agony. But the sight of his ravaged limb shattered any illusion of control. Jack was no longer an observer. He was prey. Desperately, he kicked with his remaining leg, fighting to reach the boat, now a fragile beacon of hope. The shark circled a monstrous shadow in the churning water. A scream caught in his throat as it lunged again. He thrashed, the mangled stump of his arm erupting in fresh waves of agony. The seawater turned to sickening crimson, the scent of blood drawing the predator closer. Then, a glimmer of salvation. Ben, leaning dangerously over the railing, slashed downwards with a knife. The makeshift weapon severed the rope, tethering Jack to the wreckage of the cage. But something was still wrong, a horrifying weight dragging him down. He glanced back and terror turned to nausea. The shark had clamped its massive jaws around his calf, ragged teeth tearing through flesh and sinew. Ben and Peter heaved with a strength born of desperation, wrenching Jack from the predator's grip. They hauled him onto the deck, a sobbing, bleeding ruin. The shark vanished into the depths below, robbed of its struggling prize. The ocean pulsed red around them, a grim testament to the violence they'd witnessed. Only then did the full horror of his situation become apparent. His left arm was gone below the elbow, a ragged wound spurting blood. His right leg was a mangled mess, the calf shredded and bone peeking gruesomely through the ruined flesh. The shock was setting in, merciful but fleeting. Pain throbbed in relentless waves, a grotesque drumbeat in his shattered body. Jack's fleeting moment of recklessness had left him forever maimed. He was a grotesque testament to the unforgiving nature of the sea, a living victim of a predator's ruthless power, and the chilling price of one man's overconfidence. Archaeologist Ethan Ward's life was about to take a dramatic turn in the warm, turquoise waters off the coast of a quaint Greek island. The year was 2005, and Ethan, an esteemed but headstrong archaeologist, had devoted his life to uncovering the mysteries of ancient civilizations. However, none of his past expeditions could have prepared him for what lay beneath the waves near this serene island community. Ethan had stumbled upon a legend, a local myth that spoke of an ancient relic protected by a guardian of the deep, a mythical shark that had roamed these waters since antiquity. This guardian was said to be the protector of a powerful artifact, an emblem of the gods themselves, lost to time and the sea. Driven by curiosity and the thrill of discovery, Ethan embarked on a dive that would change the island's fate forever. The relic, a bronze trident adorned with intricate carvings and precious stones, lay in a sunken temple off the island's rugged coastline. Its beauty was unmatched, its history palpable in the cool sea breeze. With awe and scholarly excitement, Ethan carefully extracted the trident from its watery grave, unaware of the ancient curse he was about to awaken. No sooner had Ethan returned to the surface with the relic than the tranquil life of the island began to unravel. Unheard of in these parts for decades, shark attacks began to plague the coast. The island's inhabitants, once living in harmony with the sea, now found themselves in a state of terror, as if the very ocean itself had turned against them. The shark attacks on the island's inhabitants occurred when individuals entered the water, whether for swimming, fishing, or other activities typical of their daily routines and livelihoods. These sharks, influenced by the Guardian's curse, specifically targeted areas frequented by humans, displaying unusual aggression and boldness. Initially dismissive of the locals' fears and warnings, Ethan soon realized the gravity of the situation. The attacks were not random, they were targeted and deliberate. Enraged by the theft of its charge, the ancient guardian had unleashed its fury upon the island. Ethan's skepticism turned to dread as he understood the relic's power and the guardian's wrath. Consumed by guilt, Ethan embarked on a quest to decipher the trident's mysteries and find a way to appease the guardian. His journey took him deep into the island's history, uncovering tales of ancient rites and offerings made to the sea to ensure its bounty and protection. Ethan realized that the trident was not merely a ceremonial object but a key to the island's harmony with the natural world. With the help of Maria Kostas, a local historian, and her brother Nikos, a skilled diver, Ethan delved into the island's past, seeking clues that could lead to a resolution. Their research uncovered ancient texts that spoke of a ritual, a way to calm the guardian's rage and restore balance. As the island prepared for its most dangerous night, Ethan, Maria, and Nikos set out to perform the ancient ritual. They returned the trident to its rightful place in the underwater temple, accompanied by offerings from the islanders, symbols of respect and understanding for the guardian's role as protector. The ceremony was fraught with tension, the sea around them teeming with shadows. But as the trident settled back into the seabed, a calm seemed to spread through the waters. The attacks ceased, and the guardian, its duty fulfilled, retreated into the depths, leaving a community forever changed. In the following weeks, life on the island slowly returned to normal, but the memory of the guardian's curse lingered. Ethan, once a seeker of treasures, had learned a valuable lesson about the balance between discovery and respect for ancient beliefs and the natural world. The experience profoundly affected him, altering his approach to archaeology and his understanding of humanity's place in the cosmos. He remained on the island, working alongside Maria and Nikos to preserve its history and the story of the Guardian's curse, a tale of hubris, redemption, and the enduring power of ancient mysteries. The Guardian's curse became a cautionary tale, not just for the island, but for all who seek to uncover the secrets of the past. It reminded them that some relics are not meant to be disturbed, that the guardians of history demand respect, and that the line between myth and reality is often much thinner than we believe. The air crackled with excitement as Mark Ellis boarded the research vessel. It was May 15, 2005, and the sun blazed down on the waters off Cape Arid, a remote stretch of the South Australian coast. Mark wasn't just any researcher. This expedition promised a chance to push the boundaries of shark knowledge, a possible turning point in his career. Mark, a specialist in shark behavior, had always harbored a mix of fascination and unease towards these powerful predators. He'd spent years in labs poring over data and footage, but there was nothing like direct observation in their natural environment. Dr. Anya Kovalenko, a seasoned marine biologist with a no-nonsense reputation and a fierce dedication to conservation, led the team. They'd been tracking a large population of bull sharks, a species known for its territorial nature and potential aggression. The goal was to tag and observe, unlocking a better understanding of this misunderstood animal. Cape Arid was a hotbed of marine life, including seals, a favored prey of bull sharks. The team had protocols for safe interaction, using submersible cages for close-up observation, minimizing their environmental impact. Still, the undercurrent of danger was undeniable. The first few days were a whirlwind of data collection and electrifying encounters. Mark felt the familiar thrill of getting close to these magnificent creatures, their sleek bodies, their surprisingly intelligent eyes. Beneath his scientific detachment, there was a primal awe he couldn't deny. One morning, the team decided to focus on juvenile sharks. Smaller, less experienced, they provided valuable insight into early behavioral patterns. Anya gave Mark the green light to lead a dive, a testament to the trust she'd already placed in him. The team lowered a large reinforced cage into the depths. Mark and a fellow researcher, Tom, slipped into their gear, carefully checking their oxygen tanks and comm systems. Everything had to be perfect. One slip-up in the unforgiving ocean could prove fatal. Mark felt the familiar sense of leaving his world behind as they descended. The blue water enveloped them, a world of strange sounds and darting shadows. Then they saw a juvenile bull shark, perhaps 6 feet long, circling warily. Mark signaled for the team above to start chumming, drawing the shark closer for observation. He'd done this dozens of times, but the thrill never faded. It was the closest he could get to stepping into the shark's world, understanding the rules of an ecosystem where humans were mere guests. The juvenile shark, enticed by the chum, moved tentatively closer. Mark watched from within the cage, his notebook and camera poised. Years of studying sharks couldn't erase a flicker of primal unease at being in such proximity to a predator. But they were safe within the reinforced steel of their cage, weren't they? Then everything exploded into chaos. A massive shape surged out of the murky depths, a full-grown adult bull shark, at least 12 feet long and built like a torpedo of muscle. It slammed into the juveniles, scattering them. The cage bucked violently under the onslaught. Mark and Tom were thrown against the bars, the camera and notebook flying loose. Through the swirling water, Mark glimpsed the adult shark's gaping maw, lined with rows of razor-sharp teeth. It struck the cage again, the metal groaning in protest. Mark desperately signaled to the surface crew for an emergency ascent, but the chaos above was mirrored below. The adult, fixated on the cage as a potential rival or prey, continued its relentless attack. Terror ripped through Mark. His meticulous training and the carefully established safety protocols, none of them seemed to matter in the face of this raw display of power. The bull shark wasn't attacking out of hunger. This was about dominance, instinct, and eliminating a perceived threat. He and Tom were trapped in the domain of an apex predator, and everything shifted from science to survival. A shriek of tearing metal cut through the din. The shark had found a weak spot in the damaged structure. Mark watched in horror as a steel bar bent inward, the gap widening with each vicious twist of the shark's head. Trying to recover the comms device, Tom yelled something frantic into his mouthpiece. Mark could only guess at his words, warnings, pleas for help. He tried to shove the bent bar back, but his strength was nothing against the shark's relentless might. The shark lunged, its head forcing its way through the gap. The cage was no longer a sanctuary, but a twisted trap. Mark saw the cold gleam in its eye and knew it saw him too, a fleshy, vulnerable morsel. Then Tom acted. With a desperation born of sheer terror, he thrust his camera through the bars, right into the beast's gaping maw. Startled, the shark recoiled, releasing its grip on the cage. With a sickening crunch, the camera was torn from Tom's hands and vanished into the depths. They had a split-second reprieve. Mark hauled on the emergency ascent cable, signaling frantically. Above, Anya had seen the escalating attack. With shouts and swearing, she organized a chaotic, panicked recovery. As the cage was yanked upward, the bull shark pursued them, snapping at the metal bars that kept it from its target. Mark and Tom clung to each other, a tangle of gear and ragged breaths. Finally, they broke the surface, gasping, choking and half-dragging into the boat. The crew swarmed them, a frenzy of medical checks and panicked questions. Then Anya, her face tight with fury and fear, gave the order Mark dreaded. Cut the cage loose. They couldn't risk towing a damaged cage, not with that massive bull shark stalking them. Mark watched in a daze as his place of study sank, a twisted testament to the ocean's indifference. His expedition was over, not with new knowledge, but a near-death experience. As the boat sped back towards the mainland, all he could hear was the relentless rhythm of his own heart, and the phantom echo of the shark ramming the cage. A brutal reminder of the ever-present danger lurking in the depths. In the vast, unyielding darkness of the North Atlantic, far from the comforting warmth of sunlight, lay a place where history and mystery entwined like the seaweed that dances to the ocean's deep currents. It was here, off the rugged coast of Norway, that Marcus Holt sought to etch his name into the annals of legendary deep-sea divers. The year was 1997, and Marcus, driven by tales of a sunken World War II submarine rumored to hold a king's ransom in gold, set his sights on the abyss. Marcus was no stranger to the ocean's depths, but this expedition differed. It wasn't just the lure of gold that called to him. It was the challenge, the chance to conquer a realm where few dared to venture. With a crew of seasoned sailors aboard the Nereid, a vessel as sturdy as the resolve of those it carried, Marcus embarked on his journey into the unknown. The target of their expedition lay miles beneath the waves, a steel leviathan that had met its fate during the war's tumultuous years. Legend spoke of the U-559, a German submarine said to have been laden with gold stolen from occupied territories, now resting in the watery grave of the North Atlantic. The stories had passed from one generation to the next, each adding its layer of intrigue and speculation. But for Marcus, the U-559 was not just a story. It was his obsession. As the Nereid reached the coordinates that had consumed Marcus's every waking thought, the team prepared for the descent. The ocean around them was a tapestry of blues and blacks, a testament to the untamed beauty and unfathomable depths of the world beneath. Marcus donned his diving suit, a second skin that would protect him from the crushing pressure of the deep. With a final check of his equipment and a nod to his team, he stepped into the void, his body enveloped by the sea's cold embrace. The descent was a journey through time, the water around him growing colder and darker with each passing meter. Marcus's excitement was tempered by an eerie sense of foreboding as he neared the ocean floor. The submarine's resting place was a graveyard of ships, a silent testament to the ocean's deadly embrace. In the shadow of the sunken U-559, Marcus encountered the guardian of the abyss here. A massive Greenland shark, ancient and mysterious, emerged from the darkness. Its slow, deliberate movements belied its power, and its eyes, void of emotion, seemed to pierce through Marcus. At that moment, Marcus felt a connection to the shark, a creature that had survived the eons in the deep, silent and unseen. Trapped in the gloom, Marcus's reality began to fray at the edges. The solitude of the deep, combined with the effects of nitrogen narcosis, made it hard to distinguish between what was real and what was the product of his oxygen-starved brain. Hallucinations danced at the edge of his vision, blurring the lines between the living and the dead, the past and the present. The gold, once the object of his desire, seemed trivial in the face of the shark's silent vigil. Marcus realized that the true treasure was not the material wealth within the submarine, but the experience. the connection to a part of the world untouched by human hands. The shark, a symbol of the ocean's mystery and power, was the natural guardian of the deep, a reminder that some secrets are meant to remain hidden beneath the waves. Marcus Holt's encounter with the massive Greenland shark in the silent depths near the sunken WW2 submarine was less an attack than a profound moment of realization. The ancient shark, a silent guardian of the deep, observed Marcus with an eerie calmness, its massive form gliding through the water with effortless grace. Marcus, caught in the grip of nitrogen narcosis, experienced a surreal blend of fear and fascination. His survival hinged on his ability to stay calm and recognize the shark's lack of aggression. It simply circled him, a silent sentinel of the deep before disappearing into the dark waters. In the end, Marcus left the U-559 and its secrets untouched. The journey back to the surface reflected his internal struggle, a battle between greed and respect for the natural world. When he emerged from the depths, the world seemed a little brighter, the air a little sweeter. Marcus Holt's expedition to the U-559 became a legend, not for the gold he failed to retrieve, but for the wisdom he gained. The abyss had whispered its secrets to him, and he had listened. The encounter with the Greenland shark had changed him. It taught him that the actual value of exploration was not in the conquest, but in the experience and connection to the earth and its ancient inhabitants. The Nereid sailed back to Norway, its crew richer not in gold but in stories. Marcus's tale of the guardian of the abyss, the shark that watched over the sunken submarine, became a testament to the mysteries in the ocean's depths, a reminder that some things are beyond the reach of human ambition. The sea shimmered a dazzling blue under the midday sun off the coast of Sharktooth Island, a remote speck in the vast expanse of the South Pacific. Michael Carter, seasoned spearfisherman and ocean lover, felt a familiar surge of adrenaline as he surveyed the clear waters from his small boat. It was October 13, 2008, and he was here with a singular goal: to bring in a big catch. Despite his respect for the ocean and its creatures, Michael saw spearfishing as more than simple sustenance. It was a primal test of skill and nerve, a duel between man and predator. While his family often worried, the thrill of the hunt and the taste of fresh-caught fish made the inherent risks feel worth it for him. Today's target area was a drop-off, where the ocean floor fell away sharply into the abyss. These nutrient-rich waters attracted sizable pelagic fish, but also drew in a species notorious for opportunistic hunting: oceanic white-tipped sharks. With their distinctive white-tipped fins and aggressive nature, these sharks were a force to be reckoned with. Michael was no stranger to sharks, and he had plans in place. Blood in the water would draw them in, so his strategy was a quick catch and a speedy retreat. He donned his gear, a sleek wetsuit with minimally bright colors, and checked his spear gun. Everything had to be in perfect working order, for in the ocean, hesitation could mean death. The water was warm and visibility was perfect. Schools of shimmering fish darted through the coral structures below. Michael descended his senses on high alert. The weightlessness of freediving always brought him a sense of peace, but a primal knowledge undercut it. He was entering a realm where humans were no longer the dominant life form. He spotted a giant grouper lurking near a rocky ledge. Lining up his shot, he squeezed the trigger. The spear shot forward, piercing the fish clean. Michael surfaced before the blood could disperse, hauling the struggling fish onto the boat. He worked quickly, securing his catch and scanning the waters for any sign of trouble. But he was too late. The scent of blood had spread fast. At first it was just a flicker of movement in the depths. Then another. Oceanic whitetips drawn by the promise of an easy meal. Michael counted at least 5 encircling his boat, and more could lurk below. The predator-prey dynamic had shifted, and he had become the focus of their attention. Michael knew the sharks would grow bolder with each passing moment. Waiting it out wasn't an option. He had to reassert his territory or risk the sharks, deciding he was weaker than his meager catch. With a mix of trepidation and determination, he slipped back into the water, spear gun held at the ready. He descended, trying to project an aura of calm despite his heart pounding. The sharks closed the distance, their pale eyes tracking his every movement. They were testing him, assessing the threat he posed. The giant shark, a scarred male, darted forward. Michael fired, but it was a deflection shot. The spear glanced harmlessly off the shark's tough hide. However, the attack bought him time. He surfaced quickly, reloading his spear gun. Back in the water, the sharks circled warily. Michael had made them hesitant, but he knew this was temporary. He had to up the ante or risk a potentially fatal full-scale attack. The dead grouper still floated nearby, tethered to the boat. The lure drew the sharks, but it could also be a weapon. He swam towards the fish, the sharks following in his wake. As he reached it, he cut the rope and gave the carcass a forceful shove toward the sharks. They converged on it, a frenzy of tearing teeth. Michael used the distraction to gain a head start. He kicked hard towards the drop-off, seeking refuge in deeper waters where the sharks might think twice about pursuing him. But oceanic whitetips were known for their persistence, especially in a feeding frenzy. He felt a mighty tug on his leg. One of the sharks had clamped onto his swim fin. Panic threatened to surge through him, but he fought it back. He couldn't lose his focus now. Twisting and kicking, Michael tried to dislodge the shark's grip. It held fast, its rough teeth tearing at the rubber. He broke free with a final desperate heave, losing the fin. Pain seared through his leg where the sharp teeth had scraped the skin, but he had no time to dwell on the injury. He was still too close to the feeding frenzy. The taste of his blood would only make the sharks bolder. Michael swam with every ounce of strength, his lungs screaming with the effort. The deep loomed ahead, a dark sanctuary. Finally, he was over the edge, plunging into the inky depths. The sudden change of light and water temperature might deter his pursuers. He risked a glance back. Several sharks hovered at the edge of the drop-off as if debating the pursuit. Then, one by one, they turned away, drawn back to the more leisurely meal. Michael didn't stop swimming until he was sure he'd left them far behind. Exhausted, bleeding, and shaken, Michael hauled himself back onto the boat. He'd lost his catch, gear, and nearly a piece of himself. As he headed back to shore, the image of those relentless eyes and the feel of the shark's teeth on his skin was seared into his mind. Once his playground, the ocean now felt shadowed by a new danger. He'd narrowly escaped the shark's domain, forever changed by the reminder that he was not the apex hunter, but potential prey in the depths.